workshop going today, right? Okay. We'll just get right into it.
Okay. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. And today what we're first talking about is fees, the setting of fees, and we will only be talking about the actual ones that are either going to increase or will actually be new.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And then I think the first set that you have, the first set that you have will be for building and planning. So Tracy, you want to, Tracy's going to join me in case there's any questions about hers. And I think in summary, what Tracy, there's very little changes. And so there's actually some decreases.
So the big packet in front of you encompasses every one of our fees that we have. We kind of, we bulk them together as the entire department instead of separating each one out by resolution. It just makes it easier to repeal and replace if we need to. I only have 3 changes this year. One of them is just language on the fee sheet. Hearing examiner charges are extra that the applicant pays for. Mm-hmm. And prior to what you've seen, that wording was not added to it. So applicants challenged us in what they had to pay. So I cleaned that up. Our same as plan, we had talked about, I think when Habitat for Humanity came in and we were trying to reduce the cost as much as possible to save any builder. But that came to light when they had made their presentation. So we reduced that down to $90. Normally it was quite a lot more than that. So $90 across the board, and that's for any builder. It's the same type lot. It would be a same as plan, or a lot of the subdivisions that have the same plans that they only offer so many. That's what they would be paying as well. So that was the second, not decrease, but the second change. And the third one was the residential ramps. We were charging based on the size and the make and the whole 9 yards. We just did a flat $180 fee, which is a lot less than what the calculated rate came out to be. And so that's for any ADA, handicap, whatever ramp. So that should help the nonprofits as well as any builder if they needed to put in. And since ADUs are becoming very, very popular around our community, that will help aid in their pricing as well. So those are only 3 changes, but I'm repealing and replacing all of the fees just as a bulk because that's how they were adopted prior. So no increases. We haven't increased. This is the 5th year we have not increased our fees. On occasion, we've added a fee based on a change, but 2 reductions and 1 just a cleanup. So nothing major.
What table is the language on?
That would have been on the planning one, and it is near the back. Oh, so we have the building ones up first, and then the planning ones at the top have kind of a pale green color. I don't know if yours are in color.
They're not in color.
They have the logo, the county logo at the bottom. So on the shoreline, the Shorelines Management Act on the first page of the planning fees, next to that, I just put in cost of hearing examiner
Oh.
charges additional. Instead of putting it on every line of whatever kind of shoreline permit they had, we just bulked it into the whatever kind of shoreline permit it was.
Just to educate me, when we set these fees, how did we come up with what they were? I mean, were they costs we incurred or we
So
had,
in
I'm probably stretching your brain.
No, you're not. In 2008, we were sued by the Clark County Builders Association. We had to do a fee study then. It was all of our fees went into the general fund at that prior to that. And in the end of 2000, I believe it's 2008, 2009, we separated the fees into what actual were permitting versus what were general fund type work. Every permit that they pay for is basically a fee based on, they did it by cost of employee hours, how long it took, like generalized. They tried to take a rationale. It is on my list to do the spring of this next quarter or spring of 2024 after things slow down a little bit. My hope is that to go back and redo that and just see if we're even in the ballpark. My hope is that we are. I don't plan on changing fees. Reduction would be fantastic, but
I might be wrong, but I think that was one of the first things Elaine did when she became,
she did go back and adjust based on,
she didn't get the appointment until about 2014. So I think it was more recent than what you said.
well, that was the first one. And then 2000, that's when she went back in and did it. But I think there's a little,
There's
probably
been an
some
update.
different changes. And I think there's different permits now. Like we didn't do the planning's changed a little bit since then. So we probably need to revamp them, but I have no intention of increasing them. We're making do with what we have coming in the door right now. But I do want to ultimately see what it does cost us to get out certain permits.
Yeah.
And be able to prove that, like this
So-
is what our actual costs are.
So Clark County Building Association sued the county?
The Clark County Association sued
Yeah.
Cowlitz County because the permitting fees are supposed to be paying for permits.
Outside of Woodland.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
A lot of
yes,
building.
north, or excuse me, south, the Vancouver group. So so we
And
went
I
through an
think
audit,
that's-
They
that-
said we weren't playing fair in the sandbox, basically.
pretty much. And so
Yeah.
that's when we separated our fees. We became a special revenue. And then last year we became an enterprise fund instead of a special revenue. What were you gonna say, Dennis? I apologize for cutting you
And-
off.
And
And
fees
it's all,
pretty much,
all the fees in both sides are just the planning fees. Are enterprise funds. Both?
About 85% of our fees are enterprise fund. The others are general fund.
And we're collecting more fees than we're spending.
Right now we are because I've reduced staff. We're living within our means. I'm not asked for any additional.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I-
our fees pay for the operation.
Correct. As well as anything that we contract out, we bring in the fees and we pass them through for a third party review or whatever.
Yeah, and building and planning is one of the, one of the areas that I present to you every month in a financial report to show you how their revenue and expenses are.
Yeah.
So we're monitoring their fund monthly.
A commercial permit really helps us out. And it's that new box, it really helps us out. It keeps us afloat for quite
See
some
a
time.
commercial
A single
building,
permit
cha-ching.
can,
A
yeah,
single permit can make or break us. Yep,
supply us several months worth.
several.
Revenue.
Mhm.
Could you explain that?
The industrial permits are all,
Yeah, if everything is intended to be normalized to an hour or, the
yeah,
effort, it shouldn't make any difference.
it's based on value on building permits.
Oh, building permits. huh?
Yeah, the building permit side. It's based on the valuation of the building or what's being constructed.
Okay, that seems arbitrary
that's-
enough.
So Lauren, that's where it doesn't fit
The mold,
the mold because it's not based on the hourly cost. It's based on,
correct,
but then that's standard. Everybody bases those on
right.
planning. So if I remember correctly, that lawsuit was either our rates were way too high out of the norm, or we were so incredibly under. This is one of the reasons, and I just can't remember exactly why they ended up filing that lawsuit. There was something out of
We were a little
job.
bit lower.
Mhm.
We did end up raising our fees. However, it was because we were putting all of the permit fees into the general fund. And
oh,
where they should have
that's
been
right.
being paid for, the permitting fees should have been paying for the permitting staff only and not just into the bank of the general fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, that jogged my memory.
And why would Clark County builders care?
They had a local person that was part of their organization that was a builder and he had raised some concerns. And so then they had ammo to come after the department.
Yeah.
It was a couple years worth of work and all kinds of legal battles.
Yeah. Hmm.
But we did get our fees separated and it's worked out. It was kind of a blessing in the long run. Just, it helped get our, I guess, ducks in a row.
I think at one point, the general fund subsidized the planning,
Yes, it did.
but general funds can't subsidize building.
Correct.
I think that was the difference.
And that
They didn't
was
want-
a pull.
They didn't want their fees going into our general fund.
Correct.
I think that was why the suit.
Oh,
And they didn't want to, if they got
Gotcha.
a couple large industrial permits, they didn't want that funding other departments.
Boy, I like history, but that was a trip down memory lane.
It was,
Thanks.
wasn't it? Yeah. I really thought I'd be quick up here. I'm sorry. I only had 3 changes. I missed you guys since this morning. It's been a long morning.
So on the desire not to increase fees, there's 2 consequences. One is, as you mentioned, staff is reduced.
Mhm.
And of course, that can lead to unnecessary delays in the processing. You only have so many bodies to go through all the permits. I haven't gotten a sense, though, that the permits are so high that that's really clogging up the works.
It's not, and we've slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
Their biggest, right now, planning is pretty much, the planning clearances, we just about doubled our numbers since last month alone, which is kind of strange for this time of year. But we see a trend. People are doing more with the properties that they have, and a lot of ADUs are being put on the properties as well, or they're making alterations to what they currently have. So,
Because we allow the ADUs, they don't have to cheat.
correct. And a lot of them are coming forward and getting permitted the correct way, which is fantastic.
yeah, that's probably a
This-
good thing, right?
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing.
The second thing with not raising rates is that you get a disconnect with the cost of everything.
Yeah,
And when you end up finally having to raise rates, it's a double-digit increase, and that causes a lot of pushback. So always have, my philosophy has been, we can't change cost of living. There's always a steady increase. But it's better to do a little slice regularly rather than a big jump up every 8 or 9 years.
I agree.
Ask Woodland.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would rather not increase fees to the general public and take it out of our ending fund that we've been now investing in than to make somebody pay additional fees so they don't have to. Trying to live within our means of what we have. I think we're good for a few years if we maintain these type levels.
Yeah, but don't overlook his point.
I'm not at all. And I watch that very, very closely. And I know Kathy watches it as well. That's something that's important because I don't want to come back, head down asking for a 10% ride. We're trying to cut it off before we ever got there.
So Maxwell Farms got a good deal then, because they paid rates way back in 2008.
They did, but they did pay for the plat extensions every time they had to reapply. So,
Okay.
and they have been working pretty hard on that for quite some time.
Didn't
So
he say this? I
Two-
thought I heard him say this morning, that was a yearly thing they had to come in and do.
he had to update some stuff, but he didn't have to pay for it yearly.
Okay,
So it was every 5 years he
Every
would pay
5
for the
years.
revision.
5 was the.
Yeah, but he's been working on that pretty tough since 2007.
I-
And really 2009 is when it started.
I gotta say, yeah, 2009, most builders would have just walked away.
Yeah.
I would think, you know.
And it got quiet for a while and we didn't know if the plat was going to be finished, but we were very, very pleased it was. You
So-
saw the stack of the paperwork. It was huge.
So do we have any other surprises in the queue, so to speak?
No, we've got, no, we have another, the one out in Pennsylvania, the cottage homes, that's
Mhm.
just stagnant. We haven't heard anything from the builder or anything since they've had preliminary approval. So that's just sitting out there vacant right now. They've not done any work.
Which I think we're not too upset about. Remember that one on Pennsylvania where
Yeah,
it was
where
going
the
to be a real
traffic is-
headache. when
Traffic,
it's
the traffic.
Not only
would be-
that, no place to park.
No place. to
Yeah.
park.
Yeah,
But we do need the
I was in
homes,
the
so it's
audience at
kind
that
of,
time and I know that street and I'm going, wow.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have to admit that I am probably hopelessly confused on this.
Okay.
So confused that I can't be sure I can make a cogent question. But I will try. The one question that comes to mind is, what's the rationale behind the following circumstance? This is for the building permit itself. Think of the situation of one house, 2,000 square feet. Another house, 2,000 square feet. Everything identical, except that instead of using the normal low-cost materials that you try to use when you build something, I decide that I'm going to use clear vertical grain, old stuff. My countertops are going to be made out of the most expensive material possible. This other house, they're going to make it out of tissue paper.
They should be charged the same. It's based on square footage.
Oh, I thought you told me it was
It's-
based
it-
on cost.
Well, there's a factor of that,
I
but
told
that's,
you I was confused.
but yeah, but that's not the driving force of that. It's the square foot, it's just it's the state building codes model, and that's what we adopt and use. It's based
Oh,
on the
stop right there.
valuation.
So the state building code tells you how much.
Well,
to-
they give us the formula of what to be charging, what other jurisdictions
And the
do.
formula includes,
A valuation is a part of it, because there are different builders and different textures and different luxuries that we can add to homes. But it is based, there is a core valuation done to it. I mean,
so in the example I was pulling up, let's say the actual construction cost was $100 for one house and $400 for the other house. Are we going to pay the same fee?
you should, yes,
No. Am I going
Yes.
to pay the same fee?
yes.
You guarantee it?
I hope to guarantee it.
You understand what I'm
Yeah.
talking about? It's just like, all right. And I'll stop there
Okay.
because like I said, I'm too confused on the other ones. Well, I could ask in general, if all your revenue is inside here, ideally, all your costs inside here would just
Mhm.
balance completely. You can't really do that successfully.
Right.
So what formula or what approach do you use, considering the fact that what's in here are disparate items, very different kinds of things?
The formula for for the fees.
individually this year, you might have gotten 1,000 ADUs, and this next year you don't get any ADUs, but you get 100 single family dwellings and nothing else. And you based your prices based on some formulation. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, it's the average time it takes a planner or a builder down there to do that certain task, and then their loaded costs. There's a formula that I know Elaine did update, but it needs to be updated again.
When you say update, like you use the building code factors that you get from Olympia, do they give you a multiplier like 0.55? Shouldn't use that, can't say it. $1 per square foot or something like that, just to use a number. They say, or you get to choose whether it's $1 or half $1 or $3.
We get to choose. It's based on like a formula driven, and then our costs are a factor in those permitting fees.
And how often are you able to change that? So like the beginning of the year, you might have found that you were overcharging. Do you undercharge then for the remainder of the year?
We could change them at any time,
Completely up to you.
completely up to the board. Yes. I
I'm
could
not,
come
I'm
in
not
every month.
suggesting you do it.
I
I'm just
know,
trying
I
to
could come in
understand.
every month and we could change the fees if the board so chose. Yes. Or if we had a circumstance where we needed to add a fee or take off a fee, absolutely. I would just come and rescind and replace and put on the new fee
And-
structure.
And let's say we were already in the budget. I mean, everything was done and sometime in April, you decide to change fees. Does that require a hearing from the public?
Yes, we'd have to advertise and do what she's going to be doing on December 5th.
That's a piece of the problem I have is that I'm struggling trying to figure out whether I have any standing or any ground for evaluating this. And then when we do a public hearing, I'm like, how can they possibly?
Yeah.
Okay. Enough advertisement.
You know what their commentary is gonna be.
I'm sorry.
You know that what the public's commentary is gonna be, in the majority, is the fees are too high.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's this notion that we're a democracy and we can vote the dollars as we want.
Yeah.
It's really not.
but I think your point is hard enough for us to understand how some of this, they'd never.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet I want them to. So what I normally conclude, and I'm not suggesting you'll have to change anything, is our system is too complicated. If you cannot explain it rationally, quickly, easily, and the average high school graduate has difficulty understanding it, we're doing something wrong, yeah. But that applies to almost everything we do, so it's not just picking on
Yeah.
building and planning.
No, you can pick away. It's okay.
Okay, so you're thinking more easy things like we charge $1 per square foot. Or just
So-
an easy formula type thing.
I think that's much easier to sell to the public.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's much easier to digest. And then all these, I mean, I look at this thing and I'm thinking, how many different columns there are?
All
And I'm thinking, shouldn't we break that down into like 3 major categories? If you're in here, it's going to cost you $1 a square foot. If you're in here, it's $2 a square foot. I'm using square
Yeah,
foot as a metric,
but I hear you.
yeah.
Make it simpler.
yeah, and business gets stuck in the minutia at times too. They'll look at something and say, well, figure out how long it takes for somebody to process an NSF, for example.
Yeah,
And throw all these things into there.
yeah, we suffer in the government arena terribly from that.
Yeah,
Of course, if you simplify it too much, then the fee is really big.
Yeah.
And you force everybody to have this, you're limited to a
To fit
certain
into
set,
that column. Yep.
measurement. So the opposite then is you itemize everything you can itemize and charge a separate fee. And that means the base fee is much smaller, but
It's
you
a
know,
judgment
it is.
call, but you gotta I think it should be several bins, maybe at most 4 for categories or 8 depending. And in the end, there's certainty for the developers or the people that require the permits. And then at the end of the year, you realize whether you had to float something because you didn't compute it correctly, or you have to reduce the fees. So there's always a lag, but at least that is really relatively clear. And I don't know that you have to nitpick any finer than that.
So Tracy, in the review of the rate increases, do you submit that to the Building Advisory Committee for their recommendation and approval?
Yeah. We spoke about it.
And you have a combination of professional developers as well as regular citizens, or do you have a regular citizen on there?
There are regular citizens. that are-
Because we always need to carve out,
Most,
we always have to listen to the do-it-yourselfers. And almost always, because it's their one and only time doing it, they take a lot of staff support.
they do. They take a lot of hand holding.
Whereas the professionals who are doing it all the time, they just, they're used to it. They don't have to ask as many questions.
Well, and that's part of their business, where this is the homeowner is the one-offs.
Yeah.
And this is their one and only usually. So
And they never forget
they don't.
when there's a mistake made.
Oh, they don't. No, it's
I
that's,
think you
but that's,
just identified a bin.
Yeah. but that's their bread and butter. That's
Yeah.
what they've worked their lives for. That's what they do,
And, the public is going to be a lot less upset if they understand.
It's true.
Of course, they'll never understand the requirement of a permit, but
Right.
that's beyond this scope.
So Tracy has hit on the perfect way to introduce it. We're not raising fees except for these 4 items.
Well,
Boom, boom,
they're-
boom.
2 of them are reduced
Yeah.
and one
And
of them I
then-
just cleaned
yeah,
up.
Then we won't have any questions.
This is like explaining mortgage fees. A lot of those on there were things that we had to charge that went someplace else and go, well, this goes there, this goes there.
Uh,
We're not buying points down.
Yeah.
We're just reducing 2. I swear.
Along the mortgage issue is like the seller is going to give me a kickback after close of escrow, and I've like,
Only in America.
It's yeah.
that's so I can get a larger loan, and already taking a loan out on the house I haven't bought yet.
So your customer buying this place understands better. We're gonna make this formula more complicated.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Trust me, we're here to help.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Next set of fees that we have that have changes is equipment rental revolving fund. And I see Sean Rowe's online. And he's presented this with a 2023 rates and then a column for 2024 rates, rental rates.
Is that in the package you sent us?
Yes, and it should have like a pink tab,
Has a pink tab on it.
pink tab,
Good thing I'm not colorblind.
So rental rates.
These
So-
are in, if I'm correct, Sean, these are rates that we charge our own internal departments.
I was gonna say, when we do work for a department or something, that's what they charge for these rates.
And
So-
these
so
rates
equipment
also
rental-
what we charge outside grants as well.
Equipment rental involves vehicles from the road department. Road taxes can only be spent there.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the motor pool does the other vehicles, sheriff's vehicles and stuff.
Right.
But I think they use the same formula. Is that right, Sean?
So the ER&R rates include fuel. The motor pool rates do not include fuel. That's the main difference.
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me speak a little bit louder. The ER&R rates, the hourly rate associated with those includes the cost of fuel. The motor pool rates do not include fuel costs in them.
Gotcha. So Sean, I could run an excavator. It just cost me.
And so, as we've talked in the past, these rates are made up of an annualized cost of the group for both the operational costs and the reserve to replace in the future with a factor of hours of use on it over the history of the equipment. And that's how we come to these rates. You are seeing some increases this year. Most of these increases are going to be from the cost of the equipment and the rising cost of fuel on that equipment.
Yeah, we've seen big increases in both. Yeah.
It would be really helpful on these if the few changes were highlighted.
Okay,
And of course, my favorite complaint, where are the page numbers?
where are the page numbers?
Who needs thinking page numbers, right?
I see one that did decrease on here, tractors and mowers.
Correct. So last year we did replace 2 of our mowers. And so we did see the average hourly rate on that go down a little bit. Those are some very hardworking machines. They get beat up pretty good on they mow the right of ways on the sides of the roads and the dikes.
By the way, is his audio odd to you?
Yes. Sean, your audio, is it on your bar for your computer? It's not performing very well.
How about now?
Much better.
Sorry about that. It defaulted to the computer way over there. So I hope you can hear me better now.
Much better, much
Oh,
better.
yeah.
So you mentioned DRNR includes fuel costs.
Yes, sir, that does.
So are you raising fuel costs to reflect the high price increases earlier this year? Or where they've come down to currently?
Right. So for our operational costs, we run a 5-year average,
Mhm.
and that includes all fuel, parts, and maintenance on it. And so, no, in the short, we're using it as the average across the 5 years to keep a smooth curve, and we're not seeing any significant price jumps that would affect us in the short term.
I seem to remember about 10 years ago, we had to do an extra surcharge on the fuel because it went up really fast in a short period of time.
Mhm.
So again, on something like this, I am confused also. So don't we really have a pretty good estimate of the cost of equipment?
I apologize. Just that again, the stream froze for one moment.
You want to hear the question again?
Yes, please.
So the question is, do we have a good estimate of what it costs to operate our equipment? Right?
Or if I could rephrase that, it seems like when for my own automobile, I can give you a cost and it changes based on circumstances. So I want to smooth all that out and ignore the variations. But it seems like I would expect if I'm going to rent the car, the item from you, I'm responsible for the expendables or the consumables. And I don't know why the price of fuel is in there, because that seems like an unnecessary complication. Fuel is all over the place.
I understand. I think I understand your question there. We do understand and know the cost of the normal maintenance. The ER&R fund is designed to incorporate all costs associated with the piece of equipment, including the one-off breakages or the fuel. And so that way there's no need to complicate it further by trying to bill out fuel to other departments as well.
And let's say the airport would like to borrow one of your something or others, would they pay this price?
They would.
And this is only for for the government entities. So a private contractor couldn't call you up and say, hey, can I borrow your 10-yard truck?
No, not normally.
So I am curious with the rate on the FEMA grant rate being in most situations more than what we charge locally. Am I misreading this?
No, that's correct. FEMA grant rates and what we're allowed to charge onto reimbursables through the FEMA process are significantly different than.
So if Commissioner Dahl wanted to rent the excavator, we would charge him the FEMA rate at $158.66,
Of course you would.
and he would pay it gladly because he's desperate. And that's a rate that they develop their own way?
Correct, yes. So it's developed through what used to be the Blue Book rates and has since passed on to other items now.
It looks like none of those increased.
They have not updated that rate structure since last time we updated our rates.
I'm tempted, I mean, I'm okay. I have no way to realize whether something should be changed.
This is an enterprise fund, correct? Or is
This
it
is an internal service fund.
internal service fund? So it too has revenue and expenses that we're monitoring.
And does ER&R keep track of the disposal or the replacement rates? We accumulate, these rates account for that?
Yes,
That
correct, Sean?
over the course of time, there's enough
Based
money.
upon useful life.
Yeah.
So each independent category has an estimated useful life. And as we get closer to that end of that, we'll evaluate each piece of equipment and either extend or reduce that useful life based upon its condition.
But these hourly rates don't have anything to do with that.
So
That's
the,
a separate charge to the departments.
nope, that's included in that rate.
Oh,
Okay, you want to go? And then Sean has one other one with rate increases, and this is the water sewer, correct?
Correct. Yes. And so I
And
think
it's
we've
a yellow or lime green tab or something.
yellow.
And so I believe we talked with the board in this already, and said we were doing a 3% increase similar to last year as well, and some of our more historical changes. And so if there's any questions, I'm here to help.
Yeah, I think we talked about this some time ago now, I think. So going back to what Commissioner Weber said earlier, we're going to charge annually increases as opposed to stacking it up and causing mayhem, right?
That's correct.
Is 3% something I will see next year in 25, I should say?
I anticipate that. We will be working on rate studies just to confirm the future capital needs of our structures.
So 3% is what it worked out in this case.
Correct.
It might be 3.3 in 25.
You know, we try and keep it as average and steady as possible. Some years may be less, some years may be more. We want to keep it consistent to the customer.
Yeah.
And I think you gave me Sean, you told me your number of your customer base here is relatively low.
Yes. Put me in a spot here. I believe across all of our water and sewer customers, we have about 1,800 total, and we have multiple systems across the county. So unfortunately, it's not as low as a city rate.
Yeah. And most of these from past discussions are stuff we've inherited. Yeah.
So how do we compare to someone outside the city, but on the city water and sewer? Are we close?
Yeah, depending on which city we're looking at, we're within the ballpark. And it's going to depend on how many units are used and the type of sewer system, but we're in the ballpark is what I would say.
The ballpark is 5% higher.
Yeah, it's going to depend on which city we're looking at. If we're looking at, say, Castle Rock versus Longview or Woodland versus Kalama, you know, they're all pretty different in how they structure their rates.
But is the number 5% reasonable, or is that a reasonable representation of the difference? So I know when you're in the city limits, you pay a certain rate. You go outside of it and you're on that, on the city water, you're paying half again as much. That's pretty standard. And then if you're in the county and you're in one of these systems, you're paying the equivalent per unit compared to the citizen in the county, plus something.
So I'm looking up rates right now. I don't have those handy. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
it's just,
believe I believe we're similar to Castle Rock's out of county rate. I believe we're more than Longview's out of city rate. But we charge the least amount we can to keep the systems running.
sure. And that same question that Commissioner Weber asked, in that number, we're including what I might call depreciation.
Yeah, so annually we do a transfer into our capital reserve fund to help fund our capital projects in the future. Currently, we're transferring about $750,000 annually. And the commissioners have helped us out with that significantly by helping with the ARPA dollars that have kept those rates down as well.
Got it.
That's probably good, because I think what's driving, when you listen to Woodland's rates, those people down, if you listen to them, they'd love to be on our rates, I think. But I think what got them in trouble is the capital,
Right.
getting behind of making sure their system stays up to date. And that can bite you big.
It probably not appropriate right now, but it seems like I haven't heard any discussion about issuing bonds to increase their capabilities
In Woodland,
in Woodland,
I
right?
haven't either.
Yeah.
So the challenge that Woodland faces is, in order to get state Department of Health approval, they have to follow the state guidelines in predicting growth. So you have to have enough anticipated growth. So to solve their capital problems, they have to overbuild right now. And there's no guarantee that they can annex the territory to build up the customer base, to pay off the bonds at a reasonable rate. So those ratepayers pay a higher proportion of the bonds. Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those, it is one of those difficult struggles when you're providing service outside the city limits. And, you know, it's easy enough to do that with water. Water isn't, I mean, Longview serves water all the way up Coal Creek Road. And that's relatively easy. But the sewer lines is really where the costs are, and that's incredibly expensive. And we tap into this huge regional facility that keeps our per customer rate very reasonable. So it's the little systems like the ones we operate that are, you know, kind of socket to the homeowner, unfortunately.
And I believe at this time, there isn't any other rate increases for any of the other categories, solid waste, stormwater.
Yeah, currently we have no increase for 2024 for stormwater rates at this time.
Hey, are y'all ready to go to the next fee,
The blue tab?
the blue tab? And I don't know if
Well,
you,
it's really turquoise, isn't it?
It's just,
turquoise, okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. So this is a brand new fee that's being proposed, and it's for our body worn camera records. It's redaction fees. It affects 3 areas: sheriff's office, prosecuting attorney's office, and office of public defense. And a cost study was performed for the basis of these fees. And Bailey is here in case you have any questions about that. It's
And this is what we have the hearing on next, is it next week? 2 weeks?
December, they're set for December 19th because they have to have publicized.
Sure. And it's these 3 rates that are for the subject.
Yes,
and I think these rates, they don't apply to, when I'm reading this, they don't apply if you're like the attorney for somebody accused. They don't apply to them. We're talking like
public.
general public just trying to get an idea on something like the gentleman that's in weekly and gives us a deal, he might have to pay.
Yeah, the RCW specifies people who do have access to them.
Yeah. They told me I should grill you from up here, but I figured, oh, you'll,
So tell me again, what is being redacted?
1 second. So as with any public record, we have to look at a record as it's open and then redact what we can, what the RCW tells us that we can. So things that are exempt in body cams are, I mean, I can go through all of them, but just typically they would be like a minor, a body of a deceased person, when officers are entering into medical facilities. Those are just a couple examples.
I think this is one instance where the public will be happy to get things redacted because there'll be hours of data. And they may want specifically to ask for 3 minutes before some event, 3 minutes after an event.
Can you repeat that? What are you saying?
You're asking what I'm asking? Oh, I'm
Yes.
saying the videos, you want to transfer videos to somebody. There'll be a lot of recording time and you're typically only interested in some small section of a video. This is from the body cams, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and the video that will be provided is based on the way that they word their request. So someone could ask, for the whole video of someone on duty. And so then, that would take staff time to review 8 hours of an officer on duty and then redacting the things that are applicable.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's a lot of data and
Yeah, I don't,
it's going to be on that officer's camera, that officer's camera, and that officer's
yeah,
camera.
there's a lot of different angles.
Yeah,
It's not my understanding that we're not gonna like cut the videos. We would just be redacting the portions that are redactable.
yeah.
do you happen to know, I don't know if you know or not, other jurisdictions, when they've started cams, do they get a lot of activity? I mean, are we expecting a lot of requests here?
CCSO deployed body cams. When was September?
Okay.
We should probably have you say that in the microphone so that it's on the record. To say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to have a class.
I'm just trying to get a sense of,
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so currently we have probably 7 in our queue. I think I've done about 3 public disclosures. And like Bailey said, we're not going to clip a video. We're going to redact according to RCW. So if there's an hour and 15 minutes of video, then that's what the requester would get with any proper redactions.
Oh,
applied.
really?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are you varying the compression?
Are we what?
Are you varying the compression?
I don't know. I mean, it's just out of a program. So we use our program. It's called Command Central, which is where all of the video is pushed into. And we're just using the program that goes with the body cam system.
And part of your redacting tools is you can tessellate a face so that you can't identify it.
Correct. So we can pixelate, we can blur, we can black out. So we have different redaction tools within that program.
But in the end, if you began with a 10 meg file, way too small, but it's easy for me to say. If you began with a 10 meg file, you're going to end up with a 10 meg file.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it. In case you have any other questions, this is cost study. It was based upon personnel time to come up with the rates, and
I looked at it and it seemed pretty
yeah,
reasonable to me.
it's pretty simple.
yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
That's it on actual fees that have increases or decreases. And so those will be presented in a public hearing December the 5th, along with our budget.
These fees will be presented,
Yes,
public hearing on the 5th.
yes.
And apparently Mr. Dragic will be here.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then there's one other topic that you asked yesterday for us to discuss. And I have a handout for you. Yes. I'd also printed, I guess it didn't make it off the printer. I had printed the road fund as well. But first I'd like to just start talking about the general fund levy. You will have levies for certification next Tuesday at your agenda. And so you'll have not only our general fund, road fund, levy information for certification, but you'll also have all of the special districts. So those are all what we have been compiled. But on the general fund, I just thought I'd walk you through, and I need to put a plug for the assessor's office. They've helped me understand levies and help me prepare this document. So on the general.
We don't have any requests from junior taxing districts that will force us into prorating levies this year.
No.
Good.
So on the general fund, there's three categories. I did some options for you to talk about because you had mentioned that you wanted to do a 0% increase. But you also have other considerations as far as what they call the banked amounts. So you have a calculation that starts off with what's the highest levy calculation that you can certify. And so the top part of the spreadsheet walks you through the highest levies calculation. You start with prior year's amount and you multiply that times the 101%. And then you add in various categories. And this one, we only had one category for new construction. And so that gives you the regular levy limit. Then there's a statutory limit. I think that's at the $1.80, if I remember correctly. I don't have it on my form, but and so of course that's much higher. So you can only go to the lowest level, which is the $20,832,448. So then I'm walking you, I'd like to walk you through the three different options. Option one is if you were to take the highest lawful levy, which includes the 1%, the amount that's banked, and the new construction. And that provides revenue to the county of approximately $666,000 annually for that. The way they calculate it according to the certification is they back out the new construction from that amount, look at prior year levy amount, and come up with your dollar increase and percentage increase. When we certify, we also get to include the refund levy. And so when you see the documents next week, you'll see a separate line item for the refund levy.
The refund levy. Explain that one again.
Oh, that's that part I don't. Yeah.
I think I know what it refers to, but
The refund levy is, it's an administrative refund levy. So what it is a mechanism by which the taxing district gets made whole when the assessor's office has to make adjustments to the a closed tax roll. So for instance, last year, we had a levy of $20 million. That was based on a value of X. Ultimately, that value got adjusted down because senior citizens destroyed properties, other exemptions that got granted after we calculated the rate. And so in theory, then the district, in this case, the county, was shorted in the last 12-month period. You didn't get to collect $96,000 that you would have otherwise been entitled to collect. That was approved for prior year's collection. But because of exemptions and so forth that were granted retroactively, that amount became, we couldn't collect it for you. So now this is the mechanism by which you can be made whole to get money that was already approved.
so is it also the mechanism used when a large taxpayer challenges the assessed valuation? And so they don't have to pay that?
No, that's an
tax?
adjudicated refund.
That's a different
That's
one.
going to be different.
Okay.
And this is strictly administrative refunds.
I didn't know what it was. Okay.
And it looks like it traditionally has been in this range, 60,000.
It
50
varies.
varies.
It can vary, and it's not something that we've up until the last few years, we haven't been able to track it, but our software now allows us to track it accurately. So we're able to provide that number and get the districts back. Sometimes it's significantly less, and we just don't have any way of knowing what kind of exemptions are going to be approved. Sometimes that also gets impacted by a retroactive state approval, say like we had with Peace Health probably 10 years ago now, where a lot of Peace Health's property got retroactively declared to be non-exempt. or to be declared exempt. So we had to go back and do that. That was a little bit different, but still was an administrative refund and would have been covered under this because it wasn't a court ordered.
So I wanted to show you the magnitude of the different options that you have available to you. So the first one is to take the highest lawful levy. The second option is to not take the 1%, but to take the banked amount and the new construction. And that provides about $462,000 in additional revenue to the county. The way it's calculated, it would show on this resolution, if that were selected, about a 99% increase, 0.99 increase, sorry. And so, and then the third option is the option that has, we don't take any banked capacity, we don't take the 1%, and we only take the new construction, which I believe that's what you had conveyed to me. So that's what I've currently built into the resolution that I've submitted for next week. And I can amend that if you would like. The reason I'm showing you these three options is because our budget is very tight. And I've given you another general fund recap update since we last met to show you the 2024 preliminary budget. And so revenues budgeted about $59 million. Expenditures budgeted almost $72 million. That includes the new positions that you authorized. And so that shows in the budget a $12 million deficit. But as you can see, this is where I was showing you that historically, we've budgeted for a deficit before, prior in 2023, it was 15 million. But and I'm anticipating for this year, we're going to be about $1 million, potentially $1 million short of revenue and expense, revenue shorter than expenses, less than expenses. So when I showed you this before, I was concerned about maintaining our 1 month worth of operational expenses, the 8%. And I went back and I looked, we set up the budget stabilization fund. So that can be counted as part of our 8%. So right now, preliminarily with the budget, the way I have everything, we will be able to maintain our 8% fund balance.
And the 8%, is that what we figure is 1 month of operation?
It's approximately 1 month, which is
That's really
short.
Yeah, bare minimum.
Yeah, that's a
lot of
bare
counties
minimum.
are trying to get to 3. I mean, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
A lot of them talk about.
Well, when I operated in higher ed, we tried to do 3 to 4 months, and ideally 4 months, because that was pretty much close to what 1 semester was in case we had a catastrophic event. So it's tighter than I would like this to be. And that's why I was recommending that if at all possible, that for our levy, that we choose an option that brings in a little bit more revenue. So that's why I'm presenting and showing you the 3 different options.
So option 2, explain to me. I see the 462,910, but then this dollar increase 200,000.
Well, that's the way
Which one do you put in the budget?
Well, you have to present it in the budget under the terms of what is your increase without the construction amount. And so that's why that shows a dollar increase of $200,000, which is equal to the banked capacity.
And then number 3, it's showing a decrease of 260.
Which is the construction.
Yeah.
So, and it's showing basically no increase over what. Well, I'm sorry, it's on the next page. Yeah.
No,
0% increase.
I'll just throw it out there. People, they're getting increases everywhere. And I think I'll just throw it out there. I think we have some fluff we can cut from the budget. I'll go back to Commissioner Mortensen's behavioral science officers at the sheriff's office. I'll go back to the filling of the drug court position that's been vacant for 2-3 years and we haven't done anything with. That I think makes up your 200,000-300,000 right there. And we haven't laid anybody off. And we haven't charged anybody more. And
Yeah, those are outside the general fund.
yeah,
They're under the mental health tax. So
That doesn't help these figures.
yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to say. This is just the general fund. But
So to
So-
understand that, in addition, then if we do not continue the behavioral health tax, then that either we terminate positions, which I don't think we're up to doing.
yeah,
Then this-
that's the decision. If you don't have the mental health tax, some of those expenses are probably
Are going to come.
expenses that you would want to fund off of the general fund, which we don't. I mean, we really
That's what I
don't
want to
have
know. The
available.
general fund does not include anything that currently goes to. Now, you were
Yes.
preparing a budget based on the expiration and the March of the behavioral
Yes,
health tax.
the budget has
But
that.
that's not reflected here.
No, this is just general fund. And we also remember on the behavioral health tax, we also have fund balance that is approximately about $6 million. And so the budget is built for 24-25, consuming that fund balance.
Got it.
And then after that, you're going to be
Is it really that high?
the fund balance?
Yeah, 6 million?
Yes,
Wow.
it's approaching 6 million.
That's the
Mhm.
behavioral health tax that we haven't spent. Or that over the next 3 months, we collect some.
Yeah, I have it in the budget to collect sales tax up through that sunset period, which is March.
no.
But then
Okay.
I think you're right. You're going to have a decision come when we start preparing the next biennial budget, which is 26 and 27. That operating expense there.
For some reason I had the impression we were reflecting those in.
We're consuming the fund balance on those.
We have 2 years worth of no changes. If there are no change, we can go for 2 years with
Correct,
eating up the fund balance.
correct.
Well, we'll have 1 quarter still coming in, right?
Yes.
First
can't-
quarter will be coming in.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's March. I don't know if I think it's the beginning of March, sometime in the beginning of March. So it may not be the full quarter that sunset period is. So that's the situation with the levy. Learned a lot about levy from the assessor's office. So there's different components to it. Like I said, you've got the banked amount, you've got the 1%, and you have the new construction that all impact the amount that you can levy, the highest levy. So you're capped at that. So I'll leave the budget as I have it, where
We're thinking,
option 3.
we're thinking,
Okay, you're thinking.
there's a lot that we've added in staff to respond to a variety of mandates.
That's what's frustrating. We heard, was it just, well, it wasn't last week, maybe the week before, maybe it was on Monday. I don't know. Time goes by, but we heard about a couple positions, and they're basically just come out of mandates from Olympia and the audit and things that we have to keep up on that.
So I don't know how we break that. I don't know if it's our responsibility to break that. Our responsibility is to communicate to the public. And that's often not the easiest task, but my inclination is to go with I'll find the option. It probably option number 1. That's the what I see in the future is we're going to a brick wall. At some point, we'll tax ourselves out of existence. Can we stop it by something here? Can we get Olympia to change its habits? If we don't collect these 1%, maybe 4 years down the line, your tax increase will actually go up by a substantial amount, which goes to what our colleague mentioned earlier. Don't hit them with a monster bill, hit them with a small bill along the way. It's a hit. And I'm not trying to put a line in the sand. I'm just discussing.
Yeah.
When you look at the dollar amounts, the much greater hit on the taxpayer is the sales tax. So we pull in 2 million.
Our general sales tax is.
No, on the behavioral health tax.
Oh, on the behavioral health tax, it's about two point.
It's been about
It's-
2.2, but
Yeah, but it's a little higher, but it's,
Okay.
I think we budgeted 2.2,
Yeah.
but it's coming in a little bit higher than that.
and here we essentially, I think it's fair enough to say with, say, option 1, what we're pulling in is 666,000 compared to 2.2. So if we don't look at the bins and we're trying to help the public out somehow, maybe that's a choice we have. Play one against the other.
Yeah.
You get more flexibility if it's in the general fund, of course.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my recommendation is option 1, and looking at our revenues and our expenses, just to help us more clearly balance the budget.
when do we, that
That-
struggles for me because I just, money is much better spent in the consumer's hand. And if we're gonna look at taking more from them, I gotta say, okay, now where do we start holding the limits on the expenses and letting the other side catch up naturally instead of always just growing and tapping? I struggle with that. I struggle with that in private business.
Always here,
Yeah.
the problem we have is our law and justice consumes 3/4 of the general fund. And our salaries are primary costs in there, are they not?
Yes, yes.
And our healthcare went up quite a bit. And our contracts went up quite a bit, our employment contracts, the union contracts. And the cost of living adjustments. So
How much did you factor in with new animal control program?
So we currently had a budget in non-departmental for the Humane Society contract. That
Right.
was about 363,000. And so I just in total moved that entire amount to the sheriff's department.
So that's.
actually, you
budget.
moved a
It's
little
a-
more than that, right? 375 or?
No, it's 360 something thousand, 363,
I think,
So roundabout.
yeah, he came in and thought he'd be less and we said, well, you better just take what we budgeted for the.
Yeah.
Oh,
we may have factored in, and I think what you're remembering is the contract currently is about 363,000.
right.
And then you factored in, because the Humane Society has been asking consistently for an increase. And I think you did tell me to budget closer to 375
That's my
to include the
recollection.
increase
Yeah,
that the Humane Society had been asking for.
So
I think we did commit to the sheriff's department not to exceed 375.
Right, right.
So there is a little bit of flexibility with the sheriff's department funding, which involves diversion of the road tax. It has to, we can divert some money to pay for road-related law enforcement activities. So a portion of that could probably be ascribed to animal control, since a lot of that will be picking up
Well, we have
animals
to
in the
pay
right
it back.
No.
On the diversion?
on the diversion, as long as you justify it, that it goes to, road law enforcement related, we just divert it.
That's
The-
one I haven't read about yet. I haven't done my research on that one.
But there's a lot of paperwork involved, but I think Sheriff Scott's staff, they could probably do that if we wanted to go in
Yeah.
that direction.
Oh.
The other thing.
So does it come from the road fund?
Yes. It's not a
Levy?
levy, it's not a levy shift, it's just money shifted from the road tax to the general fund. Or to the sheriff's office, probably. We did that for when, the first year that I was here, they built that into the budget.
I know I have a fund out there that's called that, but I didn't know.
Okay. And there was a discussion that I attended last week at the conference, addressing abandoned RVs and vehicles on the sides of the roads, which does kind of happen every once in a while. And the law does provide the sheriff with the authority to remove abandoned vehicles. But there is the cost then of what do you do with these hulks and how do you get rid of them? And that's an expense. That's also an eligible expense for those vehicles taken out of the public's right of way. That could be covered. I don't think we do anything through the sheriff's office on that, but There is that option. And then, of course, the other one is where you do shift a portion of the levy over from the road tax to the rest of the county. And I mean, again, those are just options. Taking away from the road fund is always a bit awkward because people like their roads taken care of, but
I'm probably pretty reluctant to go to draw on the road fund. That's the one thing which is kind of nice. I've said before, you fix a pothole, doesn't beget more potholes. So there aren't very many unintended consequences.
well, we did have a period of time when
Oh, yeah.
the road fund had 100% balance and that they weren't using the money. So, and we whittled away at that. And I think about 3 or 4 years ago, I think Joe was here when we finally got rid of the shift, and we haven't shifted since then.
Yeah, in fact,
you did.
he voted against one because of the road shift,
Right.
and you and I voted for it, and so it
Yeah.
went.
And Public Works has brought down their
They've,
reserve to make it
they've
more realistic.
accomplished a lot.
And I think we agreed informally that a 60% road fund gives them enough for those big emergency projects,
Mhm. Their
which
cash
we had,
flow.
which we had one this year, and that is important for us to have had that extra cash available. So. Sure, come on up. Oh, wait a minute. It's not my job. Uh-oh.
So just because I told you I'm all about numbers and being informed, when making
And
decisions.
you are who?
Emily, the Cowlitz County Assessor. So we're all about numbers and just being informed and helping you have the information to make the decisions you need to make. So we are running numbers real quick based on option 1 versus option 3. So you could see the impact of the difference between those two options you're choosing between. So it equates to, if our math is correct on the cell phones, it would be a difference of 0.02115 per thousand. So if you're talking about a $500,000 house, it's going to be about $10. So that's what the impact to the taxpayer would be between those decisions. So if you look at it as a two cents per 100,000, it's pretty easy to do the math on the different values. But that's the impact of the difference between option 1 and option 3, if that's helpful for you guys when making your
You
decisions.
said 2 cents per 100,000. You didn't mean that.
2 cents per thousand.
Thank you.
So $500,000 house would be about $10.
Of course, if your assessed value went up more than that, the tax will change. If your assessed value goes up, you know.
Rates based on their
the
current
bill
value.
The bill you get and have to pay is going to reflect that higher assessed value.
But the rate is based on the
The levy.
current assessed value.
Yeah.
So they're two separate topics, but.
You said you were comfortable with option 1?
I think everything I hear would, yes.
I think I am too, even though we had talked about other
Yeah.
cuts, but we're much closer to that required balance than I was expecting. So you kind of need to know from us which to put in, right?
Well, yes.
Someday. What do you think, Rick?
Well, I think that's 2 to 1, so you know where to
No,
go.
no,
Well, I mean-
I don't want to bowl you over.
No, it's,
Do you have an other solution?
I'm trying to find one.
So
I'll scour through some of this stuff, but
a couple of weeks ago, we said we wouldn't take, that we would do option 2. And we're now, as we are approaching the end game, saying, no, option one seems like it'd be better. Shall we say option one is now what we're shooting for, and you reserve the right there to bring up an alternative proposal in time? How much time does he have?
No, I have a resolution for the county's levy certification, and it's on the agenda for Tuesday, next Tuesday.
Because our
I think
deadline,
legally, they have until December 15th, but you have traditionally, because the budget, for me to put numbers in the budget that reflect our best estimates, we always certify the levy first and then present you the budget. But you officially have all the way till December 15th to certify the county's, to actually certify the county's levy. If I got that correct, I think in my classroom instruction.
So from the mechanics, if we currently tell you use option one, and on December 14th, Rick Dahl comes up with a solution that we like, how big a disaster is it to your sanity? Can you get the work done in that amount of time? It's pretty late.
Yeah, it's pretty late, because you're actually approving the budget December the 5th.
Yeah.
That's
and
my hope.
Well,
that
it's-
has to be a public hearing.
Yes,
So we can't even do it on December 14th. It has to be,
not unless I change the budget hearing.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll stay with your dates. I'll
Okay.
look.
you're basically looking at 2 FTEs,
Yeah.
roughly.
So this summary is that once again, you and I agree. I don't know if I can handle that.
This has been an odd Tuesday.
I better check my pulse here.
Well, it is Thanksgiving week. Why not, right? Oh, gosh.
And I'm the odd guy out.
Well,
Better check this one off on the
Glad I've
calendar.
never experienced
that
that.
youthful inexperience, that'll get them every time.
Okay, so I'm just double checking. I'm leaving my resolution the way it is right now. Because it is built upon option 3. Or do you want me to change it to option,
Thought they just told you to
To-
change it,
to option 1?
option one.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Option 1, it is. Road fund also has a levy. And so, I have the same thing, option 1, option 2, option 3. I don't know if y'all have any desire to,
So the difference is about the same, about 200,000.
no, theirs is actually a little bit different. Let me I'll show it to you.
Meanwhile, if I could ask Emily a quick question. I don't have it straight in my head. At some point, is there a maximum cap that anybody will ever pay under current law on per thousand? Like currently there's some like $15 per thousand or something. Can that just climb arbitrarily? Oh, okay.
Okay, you're talking about.
You might want to introduce yourself so we know who
Hey, I'm
the expert
Janine.
is.
Steven Snema, I'm the chief deputy and levy guru. I don't know.
The guru.
Yeah, I think the one you're talking about, you're not talking about the 590 limitation, But are you talking about the constitutional 1% where it can't go over, the combination of levies can't go over?
Something like
Yeah,
that. What,
there-
what I'm thinking is, all of the above, those things Emily gets frustrated with me because on Tuesday she explains it to me. And by Wednesday, I'm only interested in the bottom line, not the nuances. And I've seen the spreadsheet. It's an incredible opus. But I'm just trying to figure out, I know if you put a finger in here, it has an impact over there.
Sure.
So I'm counting on you cautioning us when we're doing the wrong thing there.
Sure.
Okay.
And in terms of having an impact on, say, a junior district.
Right, those
Right.
kinds of things.
At this point in the levy process, when we're just getting all of the certified levies from the district and so forth, we can't really calculate out how close we are to those prorating necessities under the 590 or the 1% constitutional limit, because we have to wait until we see what those districts certify so that I can get closer to what their rate is, what their actual levy rate for collection in 24 is going to be. And then once I know all of those levy rates for all of the districts, for instance, I have to know fire district levy rates before I can set city levy rates, because some of the cities are 360 statutory maximum minus the fire district rate. And so I can't calculate their statutory maximum until I know the fire district that they're annexed to. So once we get that far, and it's usually mid-December, once I get that far, then I start with the 590 prorations. And I think because of what values are doing, because values continue to go up, that drops the levy rates, and that naturally gets us out of the danger zone of having to prorate.
Oh, it's not an absolute amount of dollars, it's
No, it's a percent, right?
percent.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the last time we had proration, I think, was when we had a Chevy levy shift.
Easy for you to say.
So the shift affected some of the
That's
one or maybe two of the
There's
cemetery
no-
districts.
You can't legally do the road levy shift if it's going to harm a junior district. And that's what would have happened in that year. We would have, it would have raised the county general levy rate to a point where one of the cemetery districts would have been unable to levy. There was no levy capacity left in that 590 limit. And they would have not been able to levy, which prevented us from being able to do that shift. So the county then bought that out.
So we looked at their $21,000 annual budget. We said,
Indeed.
we'll give that to you out of our proceeds.
Is
Right.
the
And we rolled it.
590 something that escalates?
No, that is probably the flat dollar amount you're thinking about, because there is definitely a 590 limit. And certain districts are subject to that, some are not. Ports are not subject to it. EMS is not subject to it. So I just have to pick and choose which ones are subject to the 590. And I can show you that sometime if you're ever interested in that kind of fun.
And
But
the
yeah,
other-
that is a flat amount.
And then the assessments aren't included in those limits either. Dyking district assessments, mosquito district.
That is correct. The
And,
assessments are completely outside this entire process.
noxious weed assessments, but they're all on the property tax bill.
By assessments, you mean like
They
the
get-
school bonds?
No, Dyking district
Dyking?
assessments.
Okay,
Our noxious weed board assesses property and what's the third? Mosquito district. yeah.
Mosquito, noxious weed, diking, stormwater, flood control zone, because flood control zones, diking districts, drainage districts, they're all technically different. They're not just diking districts. The piece about all of those that you'll start, is it okay for me to go here? You'll start,
Yeah.
well, you can tell me after if you liked it. The problem with those is the way that we calculate your levy rate, we take the amount that the district wants to levy divided by the value in the district, ad valorem taxation. That's also how the special assessment districts are doing it, even though statutorily they're supposed to do it based on benefit. With the exception of? Oh, noxious weeds and mosquito have to include a per acre and or per parcel charge. There's some other fine tuning, and the state auditor's office has recently in the last few years made weeds and mosquito districts across the state clean up how they're doing it and make it more in line with the way the statutes are. And we suspect that that will be coming with our diking districts at some point, because it's just always been done this way according to the value, and that's not the way it's supposed to be done. So just heads up, I wouldn't be surprised if that comes up. But yes, that is totally outside the levy process.
So what happens to us? We know that if the valuation goes up by factor of 2, let's say, we don't fall apart on this system discussing. But what if it goes the other direction? Do we violate the law at that point?
Some districts will max out, because what happens when the value drops is those levy rates are going to go up
You're right.
to collect, because you're entitled to collect your highest lawful as long as it doesn't go over your statutory.
Right.
And yeah, that's when we start maxing out.
Did you do that in 2008 or 9?
No. The only time we've had to prorate was the one time we had to buy out a district, at least since I've been doing levies,
Yeah.
12, 14 years, I'm not sure.
Yeah, even during the recession, it was interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm. I mean,
we
values.
didn't have a decline in assessment. I didn't experience a decline in assessments until 2014, which is, yeah.
It was delayed.
Yeah.
But as long as everybody is going down or up according to what the market is doing, theoretically, then that the tax burden is still spread equitably and uniformly amongst the district or throughout the district.
So what I have noticed, the complaints are the, well, the complaints are always loud, but the ones where they're the loudest is when people live in areas where there's not only been a school bond issue, which is on top of everything,
Mhm.
but there's a fire district construction bond issue.
Mhm.
So they had 2 levels of extra taxes over the 1% limit.
We have 3 fire districts last year passed their voters approved lid lifts,
Oh, yeah.
which are not excess levies like a construction or like a geo bond. Those would be excess levies. Seniors would be exempt from those and so forth. When a district votes for a lid lift, they're saying this is what our regular levy is. Using the county for an example, you're limited at 20.8 million. Your statutory is 30 something.
Yeah.
If with a lid lift, the voters could say you can go all the way to that statutory maximum if you want.
If you can get there in those, it's limited to 6 years, right?
In the first year, you can go to your statute,
Oh.
they can raise you up to your statutory max if they wanted to approve a lid lift. And that's what happened in fire districts 2, 3, and 6. In fact,
Not
one went
5.
from roughly 36 cents to like $1.14 per thousand. So they more than doubled their collection in 1 year, and it's a permanent lid lift. So now their new highest lawful for years future is all going to start at that higher level. And that's part of our mission, is to help get that information out there so that voters understand what they're voting on and what it means. What's the difference between a permanent lid lift and a temporary lid lift? What impact is that going to have on you? Because it really does. And you're right, we get a lot of complaints.
But the vote yes
Those-
people don't necessarily want that information out. But you're,
Mhm.
Yeah. We've done our Wednesday meeting at 5:30, 1 day a month. We get about 3 people showing up.
We're
Yeah.
trying.
3 commissioners and
At least we're called people.
Okay, that's all right. So on the road fund, I just wanted to let you know, it looks like you have not taken, you have, as a percentage, your banked capacity on the road fund is actually greater than what it is on the general fund. It's about 2% of the total versus on the general fund, it was 1%. So it means that we've taken and I think last year we took 0% increase on the certified levy for road fund. So it's kind of the same options. You can take the 0%. You could take the 0%, but the banked amounts, or you could take the banked amounts, the 1%. So. And I don't know how tight our road fund budget is. Because it has its, because it has a fund balance. And so, it's not subject to the same 8%, fund balance, target that we have for the general fund.
I mean, we should have that reserve, but
Yes.
we keep it higher than that.
Right.
For those emergency construction projects.
Yeah. So right now in the preliminary budget that I have, they still have a significant fund balance to help them with their cash flows.
And so your target right now there is do not take the 2%.
Yeah, I've submitted a resolution for you to do the 0% option 3. But I know they're facing a lot of inflationary costs, so that's the only concern I have there. But they have like I said, they have a higher banked because they have been it looks like they've been doing 0% for more than 1 year.
I'm okay with option 3 on that.
Yeah, I am too. They have reserves, and I know I sit on a meeting with Crab and they're actually pushing for some pretty big dollars this year, bigger than normal. So there might be some funds available to them there. It was interesting
They've
to
been
learn
very
about Crab.
It looks like they've been very successful when you look at their metric, percentage of externally funded projects.
Speaking of Crab, they're going to have a position open on the board. Somebody's retiring at the end of December. We're not re-upping for a middle-sized county, which is from 50,000 to 150,000.
Gonna go for it?
Well, I'm wondering if we should have representation on there. I mean, we can apply for that. I mean, Wasac will put that out and we can apply for that. And I don't mind doing that if it helps. I was going to talk to Susan a little bit about that and see if she thinks that'd be
That's what I
helpful.
would do. Ask Susan.
Yeah.
She's probably the person I would have on the board, either that or maybe.
Well, that was my first choice. Yes.
Well,
'Cause she could speak that
They have
language.
positions for engineers, but they also have positions for
Commissioners.
I
Yeah.
think commissioner is the one you're looking at, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I can't swear to it, but I believe that's true.
Yeah, we got a couple of candidates at Public Works. Have you discussed any of this option 1, 2, 3 with Mike Moss?
I have not.
I know what his answer would be.
Hmm?
I know what his answer would be.
His answer would be option 1.
Of
Gee,
course.
we agree once again.
No, we're just tracking.
Yeah, but I think we're trying to make a good faith effort to keep things under control. I shouldn't say it that way. Just we're trying not to reach for the cookie jar.
That concludes. I think I heard it loud, clear.
Oh.
Option 3?
Yeah, option 3, although option 1, what's the difference in the dollars between them?
Oh, the difference,
Because there might be enough to buy an excavator for the BOCC.
Oh,
406,000.
it's about
6,000?
it's about $400,000.
Mhm.
I have no idea what they cost.
Well, that'll buy a modest one, won't it?
Yeah, yeah. We're all good.
Okay. I'm finished.
So are we.
Hey, but I'm getting you out of here earlier than you maybe thought.
Oh, I meant it in a metaphysical way or something like that.
Thanks, Kathy. I don't know if we had anything else. I think that pretty much does it. You guys have a great Thanksgiving because we're
Oh, that's right.
done for
happy.
the rest of the week. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear Kelly is gonna throw quite a bash and everybody's
Yeah.
invited.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pack up my Tupperware and go down to my daughter's. So unless there's any comments, no, nothing out there. Okay. Gentlemen, we will adjourn. Thank you.